If I cut you, will you not bleed? In such a manner, are you not the same as your fellow man? Are we not the same? Look at your form in a mirror. Is this form not the same as that of your fellow man? Are we not all the same? 2 legs, 2 arms, 2 ears, 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, a human mind, and at least some intelligence. A universal format for humanity, and deeply seated within every skull, a human brain. A human brain. A human brain. Not your brain. A human brain. Here may lie the very root of all of our confusions. Why is this your brain? To what does the word your refer to as owner of a brain? What are you? Who does the brain belong to? And who is responsible for having confused us in this way? Do you think the body your human consciousness exists within is yours? Then what are you? You think the chattering inside the skull is yours. You think the brain responsible for all this talking is yours. I ask again, if you are the owner of all of this organic technology, what then are you? You have a wife, a husband, a house, your property, your nationality, your career, your finances, your bank account, your religion, your pain, your sorrow, your suffering, your pleasures, your life, and your death. Who are you? You will likely answer, if at all, with a name. But was this name not given life through a conditioning mechanism of traditional living and a deceptive, standardized education? Is your name not a word given to identify what you are with a symbol? You likely consider yourself to be this name, 2 or 3 words. This name was given to you at the moment of physical birth into the physical world outside of your mother's womb. The brain you now call yours has nothing to do with your name, other than in remembrance and in a state of psychological drilled attachment. You think that body is yours. The head is yours, the brain, the voice, the eyes, the hearing, and every idea and every reaction which ever took place inside of this human consciousness, which you also think is yours, and must therefore belong to you. An interesting thing is taking place here. All is being contained within the vessel of what I think myself to be. I am it all. Everything is mine. My anger, my fear, my jealousies, my blood, my immune system, my nerves, my loves and my likes and hates, my pleasures and pains, my friends and my enemies, mine, mine, mine. All mine. But when I look to where this me lives, I can find no factual evidence that outside of a highly conceptual agreement, like that of naming a piece of land Britain or giving a home a street address, that anything such as a me, as the owner of all that I am and possess and feel myself to be, has ever even existed outside of a totally conceptual, educated design. The human brain is certainly involved in this life-given process of evolution, and has taken many, many more years than what you consider to be your life to reach its present physical size and ability. This is a brain of humanity, not yours. That is just plain silly. Your brain and body are so much older than you are, if you consider yourself your name. How can something which has taken millions of years of evolution belong to an identity which came into being only a few decades ago? You do not have a brain. The brain has a you. You are accepted identity, which has been educated into the structural daily patterns of thought formation. You are an educated component within human memory. Is COVID one or many? Is COVID similar to humanity? Is this so many instances of similar looking, although independent life forms, as we now take humanity to be? Is each isolated COVID particle independently and autonomously self-driven? Of course not. COVID is simple in its life existence and its life directions. It seeks to infect mankind. Likely programmed to such action in a human laboratory. Yet still, natural or human insanity. COVID has only one direction and one aim, and each little particle of COVID works for the benefit of the totality of the continuity of its organism. This is the same for all viruses. In fact, this is the same for all life. Life is undivided, and life works for the security and the continuity of itself. All life, other than mankind. Something has gone wrong with us. Only humanity preys on humanity. Only humanity divides himself into a billion competing fragments. Why? What is so very wrong with us? Where shall we begin to look for such revealing information into the actual inner nature of ourselves, that we may come to find freedom away from the incessant, conflicting noise of the mind of humanity? There are outer snippets of information to ascertain what has so very recently in our history gone wrong for so long with this entire human race. Have a listen to this. This is a recorded statement from Reverend Frederick T. Gates, who was John D. Rockefeller's business advisor. He is talking about plans our planet's elitists of over a century ago held for the whole of humanity. They sought then to create a race of people who would follow authority without question and accept a totally immoral society. Listen carefully. Does this sound like the voice of a benevolent, caring human being? Does this sound like our forefather who sought our good and our intelligence and our wisdom? Or does this sound like the manipulative, controlling, desirous, greedy movement which it inevitably was, which came to enslave mankind and divide us between a group of elitists and a group of us, the majority of us, starving on the ground, unable to support our families because those above us must have it all? The words are the words of Reverend Frederick T. Gates, which exemplify exactly what our leaders held for us. In our schools.
In our dreams we have limitless resources, and the people yield themselves with perfect docility to our molding hands. The present educational conventions fade from our minds, and unhampered by tradition, we work our own goodwill upon a grateful and responsive rural folk. We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning or of science. We are not to raise up among them authors, orators, poets, or men of letters. We shall not search for embryo great artists, painters, musicians. Nor will we cherish even the humbler ambition to raise up from among them lawyers, doctors, preachers, statesmen, of whom we now have ample supply.
This was so obviously an elitist structured division and manipulated direction for our children, brutal in its enforcement. They concocted and designed a system of education which places and roots human daily consciousness in its past. This is why every school child has his activity limited to memorization for at least 12 years. We have been educated to live in time. This education messed up our ability to accurately respond to life in the only moment of creation. This moment, the present now. Our children were turned into obedient followers and adherents to a system which sought to be grown for the power and continuity of privileged positions of those who traditionally found themselves there. Our education offers nothing more than a subtle form of brain damage. We enter school with a free mind, able to look at life freely, without any judgment, to question and learn from what we see and hear and come into contact with. When we leave school, our mind is vastly different. Now we have a mindset in knowledge, a mind of attachment to many principles, national, religious perhaps, ideological. We have a mind incapable of questioning, for we have spent the totality of our childhood in acceptance of the word of an all-knowing teacher. As we have been trained to reach the highest position in the classroom pecking order, we enter the world of corrupt and brutal competition, which cares more for a dollar bill than the life of a human child. And we do so with a smile on our faces. We have been corrupted, and our lives will bear the fruits of our scholastic brain corruption, most likely for most of us, to the day we die. Have a listen now to the words of Elwood Patterson Cubberley, American educator of many years gone by, and a pioneer at the time in the field of educational administration.
Our schools are, in a sense, factories in which the raw products, children, are to be shaped and fashioned into products to meet the various demands of life. The specifications for manufacturing come from the demands of 20th century civilization. And it is the business of the school to build its pupils according to the specifications laid down.
Our schools are factories, and our children are their raw products. We build our children to meet the needs of society and the specifications laid down. But whose specifications were these? And what was their intention? Were you aware that school was originally designed by global elitists to shape and mould the minds of your children to comply and conform with the desires of what those rich elitists had foreseen for the entire human race? I didn't think so. Neither was I. But they certainly were. Has anything much truly changed today? Billionaires still like to have their names emblazoned on educational establishments. Perhaps they very much like the corruption such establishments bring to our lives. We were certainly not raised in intelligence to understand and live our lives from a foundation of harmony, were we? Let's listen further, for there is much more to discuss.
"99 students out of 100 are automata. Careful to walk in prescribed paths. Careful to follow the prescribed custom. This is not an accident but the result of substantial education, which, scientifically defined, is the subsumption of the individual."
99 students out of 100 are automata. So rang true the words of William Torrey Harris, United States Commissioner of Education from 1889 to 1906. He talked of the subsumption of the individual, meaning they ordered changes from what we were born to be so that we may become more useful to society. But how have such psychological instilled changes affected our lives? And who or what is this broken society we have been conformed to? Are you aware of what the dictionary meaning of the word automata is? It is a machine designed to automatically follow a predetermined sequence of operations and to follow instructions provided by another. It is to remain an organic human being, but to function from a limited centre of experience-based knowledge inwardly, like a programmed little computer. Were you aware that school is programming and conditioning our children? Forcing into their brains a compliance to accept a traditionally corrupted, divided, and unfair socially structured world around them? These people also divided our schools into public schools for the vast majority of us servants, and private schools for the children of those families which came from the background of the richer, elitist families, who themselves had been responsible for designing and bringing into being this standardized system of education. In time, these elitists, who of course could afford to spend large sums of money to have their children privately, independently schooled, well, they become more and more and more powerful. And this is the fragmentation we now see in our society today between stratospherically rich people, of whom there are a few, and billions of hungry refugees. We have been mismanaged from the very beginning, divided into categories, and our world is breaking today because of the actions of these men over a century ago. and history is now repeating. Our elites of today, the comparative equivalents of Rockefeller in the past, are once again engaged in designing a future for us all. A future which has been born in their limited minds. This is our great reset we have all heard about. An ideology, obviously long-standing information, but one which has been withheld from the vast majority of us in detail and is now, just like standardized, conforming, mechanical, human, machine-like educational design of a century ago, is being enforced upon us by these elitists. It seems we are once more to be designed and redesigned. May I ask, what about the designs for us which life has in store? What are we without this ongoing corruption of rich people seeking to automate or limit or coerce or destroy our lives? Over a century ago, our education was taken out of the hands of our elders, out of the hands of parents. It was standardized and made to be efficient. Efficient in turning out children who follow authority unquestioningly. Efficient in turning out children unable to think for themselves. Efficient in turning out children opposed to each other in a state of life competition, all seeking to achieve ambitiously, but totally unable to cooperate with one another. Our education has only focused on a battle of competition and on the importance of arriving in a top place. If anything, our education is designed to encourage us all to become highly self-interested in life. Self-interested people have little ability to intelligently come together to question a corruptly run system, a system benefiting only a very few, at the expense of the lives of the many. If our system is anything, it is instantly recognizable as this: totally unfair, and designed that way. One must question the rationality of those in positions of leadership today, who claim to have insight to lead and benefit our lives. Questioning does not come easily to a mind of an adult who has been deeply conditioned to comply and always accept the dictates of an authority. Questioning is dangerous to such a mind whose security comes from the words and the nodding head of another in authority. And today we find ourselves in a very similar position. And today, whether we know it or not, our brains are not functioning at all well. And the reason they are not functioning well is because of the drastic limitations we have all accepted into our lives because of the ridiculous conforming and deeply programming education we have all received, the interest of which was to turn us all into little capitalist authority-obeying machines, workers for our global elitists to continue their eternal, infinite palatial lives. This video is one of deep revolution, but it is not of any revolution you may have previously encountered or even thought about. We need to bring a revolution today into our very brain cells. We need to bring our brains back to the freedom they each enjoyed prior to the corruption of a state-mandated controlling and conforming educational system. This video investigates how we may come to do just that. Why is this important? Humanity works from a foundation of knowledge. This is our educated behaviour. Knowledge is what we know. This is our past. We cannot know this present moment, nor the future. We can try to control the progression of now into a future through what we think we know, which is greatly how we live. And we make tragedy after tragedy working this way. We live like headless chickens. What do we know? We know what we have learned and what we have been educated to. We know what we have experienced. Our minds are actually the centre of all knowledge in our lives. Our thinking is a movement within and of memory function in a human brain. When you call yourself a name, this is learned and memorised information which you are now repeating. When you call yourself a Christian, a Muslim, or British, or American, or Russian, or anything else, this is memory talking. This is education. This is the past. And it is memory talking from a basis of identification to a concept. What does it mean to be British, or to be a Muslim, or to be anything else? Are you truly anything other than in a world of conceptualization and images? Are you or have you ever been anything other than a human being? Being. 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 Is this not much more all of which you are? Are your names, your words, these issues you have been educated to identify with? Are these all not only images? Is it not imaginary to believe you belong to a nation or to a religion? We fight and war over differences between ourselves, which have absolutely no reality in truth, but are firmly rooted in illusions. Britain is a concept. It is a name given to a small piece of ground. Yet the people born on this small piece of ground have divided themselves from all others. When we divide, we kill what we have divided against. And we seek security now in these illusory time-based, artificial divisions. Have we now been trained to accept concepts into our daily thinking? And do we now carry these concepts as identified and valued living components of our lives? Do you not consider yourself to belong to a country? Do you not consider yourself to belong to a religion or a political ideology? Yet, what are all of these conceptual identifications other than something someone has told you about in the past? If no one told me I was British or a Christian, would it be likely that I would grow up to place any importance in such divisive ideology? We all live in such illusions, in such illusions, in such illusions, in such illusions. Same if you belong to a traditional religion. Same if your mind chatters incessantly from morning to night. This is the most glaring and transparent evidence that all is not well in our deeply educated and so surreptitiously conditioned thinking brain cells. You think the brain is supposed to be thinking all of the time? Of course not. This chronic movement within us is a legacy of a manipulative education which brings a peculiar and subtle form of brain damage to our lives. It turns us all into little self-interested egoists, pursuing our own isolated interests into our own isolated futures, divided from each other, moving from isolated pasts, as though we were all totally unrelated to each other and to all other life on this beautiful planet of which we are a part and from which we came. Totally ignorant and even unable to act in this present moment. We all live in such illusions, 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 in such illusions. Totally ignorant and even unable to act in this present moment for itself without seeking something in the future, a reward from my present actions. Educated as we are, we become proud patriots of a divided nation, seeking to defend ourselves against all others who are only doing the same thing. And we have now lived this way for so long that we find sanity in total insanity. We secure ourselves and our lives in complete insecurity against and in a state of hostility over the lives of others, and we do this on every single level of our daily existence. Our lives are nothing other than a battlefield. Our education has made it certain it would be so. Our lives have been planned to live this way by others. The same thing is happening today. What is trying to beat your peers to higher position in a classroom other than an educational corruption, preparing students to compete and battle against others in all walks of life, and an education into seeing your own ambitions and wants as the most important thing in life? Has this not divided us as people? What is sitting in a classroom for years, repeatedly forced to follow the discipline and authority of a class teacher, other than corruptly and surreptitiously attaining to instill within each one of us a strong conformity and even a need to follow the direction of an authority in life? Why do we even have authority? Why do we follow people in positions above us who only destroy and massacre all potential quality of our lives? Look around the world. How many of us are in this chronic position, held firmly under the dark shadows of the all-consuming wings of an oppressive government? It seems everyone wants to be our authority. Everyone is telling us how the world needs to be, from their particular peculiar authoritarian perspective. Despite so many global deaths and injuries, our pharmaceutical corporations, who today profit to the tune of billions from these vaccinations, and during a global pandemic threatening all human life, are all telling us we must vaccinate, despite any ability to even claim back against their many injuries. And apparently, such risks are in our interests. Is this not a potentially disastrous, despicable action of useless and unnecessary self-seeking authority to our lives? Is this not a crazed movement of greed? Nothing new to poor, suffering humanity. If we are to roll up our sleeves for the benefit of others who may be harmed if we do not, and yet we may be harmed if we do, then let us open up and empty those tax havens and give the fortunes lost to the already rich back to those who need them, and for a very good reason. Authority in our past has told us that smoking is safe, DDT is safe enough for children to bathe in. Every insanity possible at some point has been passed off to us as sanity because it helps the authoritarian position of someone else in a comfortable position of authority for us to see it that way. Authority in all its forms is no friend of humanity. Understanding is what we need, and understanding has no place at all for any authority. Authority is the denial of autonomous and intelligent human living. Understanding is an enemy to all authority. So why do we have authority? Is it that we do not understand a single thing? And why do we not understand a single thing? Is it because our schools' only concern is to force us to corruptly comply with a traditional, broken and divided, totally corrupted affair of life? Despite all of this outer coercion, all of this sick manipulation of others seeking to convince us all into their viewpoint for our benefits, of course, there remains an authority over us, which is the most dangerous to us, and it sits in a position relative to all of our lives where it has the most ability to cause the very most damage. That authority is the authority of what you know and have accepted, the authority of the talking voice inside your head. Your head. Your head. you likely consider it an inevitability that you maintain a psychological attachment and identification to a nation or an organised religion. This is no inevitability. This is conceptual and educated living. There are no nations to life, only land. Land free for humans to live on and to walk around freely. Without borders. Borders begin in the limited minds of corrupted human beings. There is no religion to be found, other than in the living of life itself, freely, with a mind released from the corrupting influences of tradition and education. These concepts and rules and traditions of acceptance and belief and imitation and following are educated into us all. What injures us is learned information. What binds us together as one is natural. We are all humans, all humanity. Our nationalities, our divisions, our educated principles have no validity over and above our actual lives. Our divisions have no validity over and above our actual lives. Are we left, right, or centre? Which authoritarian style of political party should we follow? Democrat, Republican, Labour or Tory? Each of these is looking out for himself, and so each of these has little concern for anything other than himself. Is this the best we can do? If it is, we are interested in the growth and security of only our little world. Can you see how our life in living this way is contributing to the divisive chaos present in our brutally divided world today? When a child is born, there is no talking self present within the brain. There simply cannot be. Language will not be learned yet for many years. The information we garnish, which suggests we are a continuity of self, comes from this incessant chatter inside. Without such ongoing noise, without such continuous flowing of words and images internally, how would we ever feel that we were anything at all? We are not born with this inner movement as children. It is educated into us. This is what brings us to become automata. Thinking is automatic. There is no self. There never was. The talking self inside you, you think of as what you are, is nothing other than a learned concept. It is an ideology of the same kind of conceptual arrangement as a person who believes in an unseen God. The belief and the talking makes it seem like you are there, and the feeling of this frustrated reality follows the initial assertion of such a belief. We all believe we are here. How many of us have dogmatically investigated to find out what exactly it is that is here? Listen internally. Words, images. Where is self? Where are you? Are you behind all this movement, coercing it, manipulating, offering guidance, protection, direction? Are you behind this inner world? Or are you a part of it? Are you these words and images and memories internally which flow through the brain? Is there anything other to see here of substance outside of an assertion and an ideology? When a child is told in a classroom at a young and tender age that they are British and Christian, or Israeli and Jew, or Arabic and Muslim, among so many other things which may be told, they naturally come to identify with such educated information provided to them by their adult group. And they grow up to become what they have been told they are. And so they grow up divided against each other in a state of hostility. And this is our world. Muslims, Jews, Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, Taoists, communists, Democrats do not find their faith after years of arduous investigation. Their faith, their beliefs, their dogmas, their very ground of life from which they function has all been accepted from a standardized education. How many people in this world would claim to be Christian if the Christian religion never had an interest in convincing children to its value in their lives? Same for all. We are not being anti-Christian here, observing the absolute fact that our later securities, beliefs, and even fundamental feelings of what we are often come to us not from our own investigation and understanding, but from the insistence that we believe a story we have been told by our elders when we are very young. Train up a child in the way he should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Our schooling systems certainly understand this principle when they repetitively conform every single child to the exact same imprint of human self-interested consciousness. The same for many, but not the exact same for all. And this is one of the reasons we have war in our world. The same structures, religion, patriotism, ideologies, but different content within these structures, which brings us all to conflict. War is partly being caused by our educated and divisive traditional identities learned in our childhood. And these identities, each and every one educated into us from birth, are all conceptual. There is no reality to the word France other than in our agreement that this is a piece of land and one divided from all others. We now need passports and visas to travel our once free world. Yet strangely, wild animals move between borders without even realizing they had moved into another country. So much which seems to exist in our world, in truth, only exists within a concept of a human limited thinking mind. And we project such conceptual thinking onto our factual universe, and in our complete and subsequent total ignorance, we come to believe we are very clever. And we come to understand that which we invented and projected from ourselves. And so, we truly understand not one single thing. We have failed to see that we have all been conditioned to believe that we are our name, and that this name has been identified in our school years with our memories. It is memory which passes class tests. It is memory which repeats over and over again. It is memory which recalls and projects remembered information. It is memory which thinks. When you win a class award for a job well done as a child, or your society tells you you must do better than you have previously, like some kind of a performing monkey, you are being conditioned and programmed to see what you are as a movement within memory. Your view of what you are is being limited down to this movement of repetitive thinking, which is only a movement of memory, which is your past. This scholastic manipulation of our minds towards a viewpoint that we are an inner thinking movement responsible for all thought is a total illusion. We will never be able to do a single thing to help our dire communal situation unless we can first undo the damage which our manipulative education has divisively caused to each one of us. We need to understand, and in understanding, we need to come to lose ourselves. We carry within us a centre of educated knowledge. We refer to this centre as me. This is identified by a name and other attributes. I am. I may state my profession, sexuality, age, hobbies, information, likes, dislikes, past. So many things can be held under the umbrella of I am. This inner self, encouraged during education, alien otherwise to life, divides us from every other me. If I am something, then you must be different to me. It divides us internally also, within our very consciousness. Have you not noticed how you frequently come to meet conflict within your consciousness? If consciousness is one, and you are a thinker, the one and the only, how is it even possible to experience conflict within one mind? Because the mind has divided. Our education saw it so. It has now divided between a thinker, who is permanent apparently, and many fleeting thoughts. This permanent self is a concept based on an attachment to an ideology that you are your name. You are merely a thought within thoughts, and the brain is doing it all. School wants us to solve problems. Learning a language is a big problem to a child. Likewise, learning mathematics. All diverse subjects present with their own innate problems. As we progress through our competitive schooling system, our brains naturally become adept at living with and solving problems. Have you noticed what happens to a brain which functions predominantly in memories when it has to repeat a certain kind of behaviour over and over and over again for many years? Doesn't it come to miss such a movement if it is taken away? Our brains now find security in a repetition of all movements known. This is why you personally carry so many problems through every day of your life. Worries, depressions, fears and anxieties of things past. You were educated into this psychological behaviour at a very early age. What might life had been like for us, had such intrusive, monstrously, elitist designed and enforced, mandated so-called education not been placed on all of our shoulders? Impossible to say now, but certainly we would have been a lot happier, a lot freer, a lot more natural, less automata, perhaps as life intended. And our elitists today, this very day, are asking the whole of mankind to accept as natural that COVID spike proteins be manipulated to grow inside our bodies from our very own cells. Life would never ask for such a thing. This is another monstrous idea from human thought. Follow the science, we are told. I would rather follow life. Science is based on knowledge. And today's science has well proven itself over and over again to be susceptible to the corruption emanating within the minds of self-interested men. Life does not want our human cells to be growing COVID spike proteins. If it did, then we would surely be born with such capacities. Life also would never enforce a mechanism within the memory-based consciousness of a human being which forces it to comply with an educated structure of always living in continuous time, seeking always ambitiously for more for myself, battling always against all others, living completely self-interested and self-centered. Totally unconcerned about the lives of all other human beings, and totally subservient to anyone in any position of authority, no matter the observable level of despotism present. Our inner world is a result of our outer world, and our outer world is built and corrupted from the thinking which takes place within our human, deeply educated consciousness. These are actually two sides of the very same coin. What this means is that if we can somehow change our inner world, our world of thinking, our divided conceptual outer world will also change. Can the damage our education has imposed upon our lives, which is considerable, the incessant distortion of our world around and within us, by our very own thinking no less, ever come to an end? Thought is knowledge, stored in the brain's memory cells. You can think about this film once it has played through in entirety, but without watching it, you could never even think one thought about it. What this means is that your thinking is limited to what you experience and remember. This is why our world is constantly at war. This is why billionaires keep taking and can never give back a single thing. This is why we have 195 conflicting, divisive, separative nations, all resisting each other. This is why we have over 4,000 religions, all battling each other. We are all educated to conform to differing, conflicting principles which divide us in life and bring us repeatedly to war. Our thinking is wrong today because our thinking is rooted in conceptual identification which have no corresponding reality at all in real life. Our brains have accepted as true many things which, to put simply, are not. It is only a deep and sustained investigation into the structure of our now corrupted and deeply broken minds, thanks to Mr. Rockefeller and his elitist ilk of days gone by, and their enduring, corrupting legacy in all of our lives, observable in this totally broken world and in our now broken, although deeply educated minds. Division is always a great danger to us human beings, and the division of wealth today is clearly showing us this. Men of wealth have previously constructed a system to imprint and manipulate and control the wealth and minds of humanity, and our broken world of today is their corrupted, glorious, sought-out, desired outcome. Men of wealth today, similar people to Mr. Rockefeller of 100 years ago, are seeking something similar. They are seeking to bring to us their view of what our future should look like, and we, once more, are expected to simply accept. May we be wiser this time around. But how do we come to protect ourselves from this historical manipulation and destruction of our lives? We come to an understanding of what we are. Once we have this, we can never be led anywhere. We will be free human beings. We can come to an understanding of our lives through an investigation of how our lives present to us today. We are corrupted today. It has become all but impossible for humanity to stand together on any front. So divided have we been. we must come to understand and end all divisions. And all divisions have their roots in one division, the division of inner talking self, 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 self. The talking you hear inside you is knowledge, and knowledge divides us. Knowledge is funded and rests its head alongside ignorance. We have never understood the limitations of knowledge. We cannot have complete knowledge about anything. There is always more to learn. And so knowledge goes hand in hand with ignorance. And when we make decisions based on knowledge, we always end up with catastrophic consequences because of the information we have not seen in our ignorance. If I am acting always in my knowledge, in my thinking, I am acting in ignorance and so creating absolute chaos in this world, which is, by the way, what we see happening in every single direction. We have now one possibility only to survive. This mess caused by the inner functioning of our own educated, divisively programmed states, and the fact that we act always from our limited, divided, conflicted thinking. We can watch what we are. We can watch what we are to the point that we come to a full and complete understanding of what we are. If we can do this, we have the only chance possible to break the pathetically limiting psychological mechanisms of control which our society has placed within each one of us. And we have the only chance available to find out at last what we really are, beyond what we think we are, beyond our beliefs and images, and what life truly has in store for us. Surely, this is far removed from the constant war-torn inner and outer environment which our broken and corrupted educated minds, designed that way by previous global elitists, that we may yet have a chance of building a better world.